Hey everybody, and welcome to Vlogmas episode number 14, and we start with a question that I was asked on one of my earlier videos that basically asked what lightsaber brand is being used when I filmed recently at the Linton Cup lightsaber tournament a couple of months ago. So I'm here to answer your question, and the simple answer to that question is that the vast majority of the fighters there are using sabers that have come from the actual Silver Sabres foundry, which is, I believe, affiliated with JQ Sabres, but essentially they're made to order by the fighters themselves as part of the Silver Sabres Combat Academy. And we've got some examples of what they use. This is actually a picture of the saber that was used by the champion, the actual winner, Ben, of the tournament. This is the one that he used. And I believe this is called the Elisium X, which is slightly different to a standard Elisium in that it is longer and features that small sort of diamond-shaped crossguard at the top of it as well. And as you can see, it's intricately detailed, this particular one, because like the vast majority of them, they are custom made. So you've got lots of customization options that go along with them. And this particular one has obviously got a lot of detail and a lot of time and effort that's gone into that. Again, this one is from Silver Sabres Foundry, so it is kind of made in-house. And they also have a couple of others that they use. One of the most popular ones is this one, which is called the Excelsia. This one is predominantly, in my opinion, is best for when you're training, particularly if you're just starting out, because although you are predominantly using what is a cylinder when you're fighting, the blade is obviously round, but the way that it's used in combat is that you still have an edge to it. So you still treat it like you would with, like, say, a longsword, in that you have a cutting edge. And by using this particular one, the Excelsia, and having that sort of crossguard shape allows you, particularly when you're just starting out, to sort of learn where in your cuts the front of the blade actually is and where you should be cutting with it. So it's a bit of a training one, and it's quite unique in its design. It's obviously got quite a unique shape to it. You are allowed to use this in combat as well in tournaments if you wanted. It's just about within the parameters in terms of its size, and as long as the, I say crossguard, there is actually a technical term for what these are, as long as it's not too wide, you are allowed to use it. Now you can go to the Silver Sabres Foundry website and you will actually find that one, but you will also see something called the Evolution or the Evo Training Saber, which are these, which are on the screen at the moment. And these ones are my own personal favourite because they are particularly lightweight. I will say that the Elisium X is actually lighter than this, even though it's significantly bigger, but it does have the advantage of being incredibly light, even though it does have some extra size to it. But the extra length is actually not a bad thing because it enables you to, in my opinion, be quite manoeuvrable with it when you're using two hands, as realistically, in my opinion, you should be with this form of combat. So it works in both its manoeuvrability, its lightweightness, and the ability to sort of obviously duel technically correctly, as though it were a two-handed weapon. Now, the Evo Training Saber is a lot smaller. It's not quite as light as that, although when it first came out, it was, in my opinion, one of the lightest ones that you could get. I do actually have one here as well. So this is the one that I use. So this is the Evo. It's slightly customized in that I've put a leather grip on it, but I personally would use this one. This would be my favorite. I think the Elisium has got the slight advantage. I think having the crossguard on there is actually a good thing with that kind of combat tournament level. But in terms of training and practice, this was always the one that I go to. Personally, I love the design, I love the look of it. It is quite lightweight, especially compared to a couple of others that I'll show you. But again, this is all from the Silver Sabres Foundry. And as I say, I believe they're affiliated with JQ Sabres. Certainly this one that I got, which is the same model, did come from JQ, who manufactured and customized it for me. So yeah, in my opinion, it's really, really good. It has the ability of being incredibly lightweight. It's not very heavy at all, but it is still remarkably solid. And you could make an argument that a heavier one is better, simply because although it's less maneuverable, it takes the impact and the shock quite well. But I find that this is perfectly fine and doesn't really impact too badly. You get the shock kind of running through your hand and through your arms when you get hit by a heavier blade, but because this is such a good all-rounder, it's always been a favourite for me. So there we go. So the actual brand that they're using is a bit of a combination of Silver Sabres Foundry and JQ Sabres, but there are certainly other brands that are out there that a couple of the other fighters, particularly ones outside of Silver Sabres Combat Academy, might well be using. One brand that I probably would not recommend for this would actually be Saberforge. And the reason for this, I'll show you, is that in my opinion, Saberforge they're just too heavy. They're so over-designed, but that's kind of the point. I think they're excellent for sort of display fighting, but if you're going into a combat tournament where it's all about speed, these are just way too heavy. I mean, this thing is compared to the training Evo, this just weighs a ton. You can feel it as well. It just is extraordinarily heavy in comparison, considering that the length of them is exactly the same size. It's not that much wider, but the weight of it is remarkable. So they're okay. I do really like them. I love the way they put them together. I do think that their quality is pretty good in my opinion. It's just that they're built more for, in my opinion, displays and cosplay rather than for actual tournament use. Now obviously they do have quite a big range, so they may well have something that's actually okay now, but certainly in my experience, particularly if you're fighting in the UK, you have to pay so much on the import taxes that you may as well just go straight to JQ Sabres or Silver Sabres Foundry and just get them from there, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to be wanting to use them in tournaments and you need something lightweight, which this is just not. It's way too bulky as well, with bits sticking out of it, but of course it's because it's customized, so it's more about how it looks than how it performs. And personally I do have a Crossguard as well. Again, mine is from Saberforge. I would never in a million years use this in combat in a tournament. It is way too big, way too bulky, way too heavy. It's just an absolute beast. It's not so much the length of it, it's the problem. I think these are actually slightly longer than the Elisium and the Excelsia, so you probably wouldn't be allowed to use these ones. To be honest with you, I think they're a bit too long. Having said that, even if you were allowed to use these, I just think it's too bulky. This is an absolute beast, as I say. It weighs a lot and you would not be able to maneuver that around anywhere easily enough. You obviously get a good bit of hand protection up here, but it's not enough to compensate for the weight of it. You would just not be able to move this around quick enough compared to what the other fighters are using, who are going to be so much faster than you. It's all about speed, really, being able to defend and attack and counter-attack. Being able to do this with something so big just isn't going to work. So that's why certainly the fighters in that tournament that I filmed were generally, so far as I could tell, all using the ones that came from Silver Sabres and JQ. And I hope that answers your questions. There are obviously a lot more brands out there, but certainly in terms of combat and tournaments, you just want something that is as lightweight as you can get away with. And what Silver Sabres have designed is perfect because it has the ability to be incredibly lightweight, but also has the added advantage of the Crossguard, which in my opinion is definitely an advantage, simply because it offers so much more protection for your hands, and it also enables you to make sure that you're cutting properly and you have some idea of where the actual edge of the blade is, which particularly, like me, if you don't have a huge amount of experience with it, it does actually make a big difference to be able to visually see where the front of the blade is supposed to be. So for me, that's definitely a win. So there we go. I hope that answers the question. And on that, I shall end the episode there. Do stay tuned. It's Friday tomorrow. We've got 1 more week left to go and a couple of days until Christmas. So please do subscribe and stay tuned. I'll put a link at the end of this video as well, just so that you can, if you want to, click back and go and have a look at the playlist from that lightsaber tournament. And if you're interested in either taking part in that or having a look at the blades that they're using, do go and have a look at the Silver Sabres website, and you can click on, I think it says shop, click on that, it will take you to the foundry and you can see what types of hilts and blades they have to offer. So with that said, we're all done and I'll see you guys real soon.